going on, everybody? It's Geoff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal, and we are trying out some new gear here at the Albuquerque Journal for today's Albuquerque Journal Sports live show with colleague Sean Reider, who is, while in another frame, sitting all of about 10 feet from me, probably less than 10 feet from me, across the the meeting room, boardroom, whatever table. So it is election day. I imagine you guys are all here for a lot of election results, and we plan to give you nothing but election results, and my I voted sticker is here to prove it. Actually, we're here to talk a lot about Lobo football and Lobo basketball. Sean, how are you doing?
Geoff, doing good. It's not even close to 10 feet. This is literally like 4 feet.
Yeah, that was a misguide, but misjudgment by me.
But thank you for having me on, as always.
Sean, we are at a weird spot in the college athletics, I guess, calendar where you got the overlap. And in these parts, that usually means Lobo basketball is all we talk, but Lobo football has kind of caught the attention this year of a lot of people, of a lot of fans, and they are still in early November playing for something. Technically, mathematically, they're still playing for a bowl game for this season, and you could obviously argue they're still playing for a lot because they're building something under Bronco and Bronco Mendenhall. We usually do this show on Mondays. I want to start off. I guess we're going to start off with some basketball, and then we're going to go to football. Is that what we're going to do? For you viewers out there that are new to this, we usually only talk football, but because we're now on the overlap with basketball and the Lobos did play last night, we'll talk some Lobo basketball. So for those that don't know and haven't seen our coverage in today's journal, online or in print, the Lobo basketball team opened their 2024-25 season last night with a 91-84 win over Nicholls State, and they did a whole lot of really good things, and they did one really, really bad thing, maybe two bad things that kept Nicholls in it and kind of drove the 10,000 fans that were announced in the pit last night a little bit crazy, and that's allowed 15 three-pointers. That is a high in the Richard Pitino coaching era. That is by far more than, I think they only gave up double-digit three-pointers 4 times last year, and 12 was the highest. So Nicholls kind of stayed in it, and it was because of the three-point shot and the three-point defense, which is actually something the Lobos were top 25 in last year, and kept them in it. The positives, though, were 3 players had not triple doubles. That would be really good. Double doubles. Nelly Jr. Joseph, Mustafa Mzil, and Donovan Dent all had double doubles. The team had 10 steals and 10 blocks in the same game. A lot of really good things came out of it. Not the three-point shooting for the Lobos and not the three-point defense for the Lobos. Sean, were you able to catch any of the game?
I was able to catch the second half via the Mountain West Network, or the MW.com, I should say.
The MW.com. So a lot of these non-conference games for Lobo Sports, Lobo Athletics are going to be broadcast on the Mountain West Network, which just picks up the local feed for basketball. That's Robert Portnoy and Hunter Green. And last night they had the call on the Mountain West Network. What did you think of what you saw, Sean?
Well, I kind of want to answer your question with a question. I mean, what did you think of Nelly Jr. Joseph's performance? 28 points and then how many rebounds? 16?
Yeah, he had 16 rebounds. He also had 5 block shots. He also had I'm trying to fix the mic here a little bit as we go.
I'll kind of say, like, it looked a lot cleaner. I know Nicholls is not a big team, and that's what I was kind of seeing at home too. I know you saw that in person as well. It looked like a little bit more polished overall, and that's what kind of stood out to me. What did you think of this performance?
So I thought it was really good, actually. The three-point defense was a bit of an anomaly if you look at what they did last year. I actually think this year's team is going to be better defensively because they're taller. They're much bigger than last year when they played 3 guards. One was 6 foot. Maybe generously for Jalen House. And then they started and played big minutes for 2 6'2" guards. Now the smallest they'll ever be at any time, even if they play 3 guards, is really going to be 6 foot 2. I guess if they play Cade Dotson, the backup point guard, and Donovan together, they could have 2 6'2s and maybe a 6'4 and CJ Nolan. But most of the time when they go 3 small guards, it's going to be 6'2, 6'4, 6'4, which is a huge improvement over 6'0, 6'2, 6'2. And sometimes they're playing Philip Borovicinin. I'm going to get that at some point. If they're playing him at the 3, he's 6'9". So this is a much better, much bigger Lobo roster. Because of that, I don't think they're going to actually be giving up 15 3-pointers very often. Now, Nichols State did that last year. That is what they did. They ranked in the top 100 in point distribution for both 3-pointers and free throws, and ranked like in the bottom 20 in the country in how much of their points came from 2-pointers. So they're not a team that goes inside anyway. I wasn't surprised by what they did. I was a little surprised at how poorly UNM was able to stop it. But I really do, for a 1-game sample size, think it was a bit of an anomaly. Now, if UCLA, which isn't a big 3-point shooting team necessarily, although they hit 10 last night in their win, if they on Friday come out and hit 12, 13, 14 threes or something and have a whole lot of space, then we're starting to look at maybe a little bit of a trend that could be a problem for the Lobos. But I don't see that being a long-term thing by any stretch. So you take that out of the equation, and the Lobos aren't a very good 3-point shooting team themselves. And that is a weakness I can see that could be a problem all year. They shot 7 for 36. That's 19.4%. It's one of the worst 3-point shooting games I've seen from a Patino team, because even though they weren't hitting them, they just kept shooting them. They had 2 players go 1 for 9 from 3. You're not going to see that very much, because both CJ Nolan and Mustafa Emziel, as crazy as it sounds, after 2 of them go 1 for 9 in the same game, both of them can hit threes. So I don't see that as a big problem. I do see that being a bigger problem than the 3-point defense, though. And that's sort of where I'm at with it. Nelly Jr. Joseph is a guy I thought coming into the season was going to have a monster year, and I still do. And I think a lot of people saw why. I just think he's in such good shape right now. He's physically dominant down low. And I think he could do what he did last night. I think he could do it again. Maybe not all season, certainly not every game, but I think he can have big games like that all year. I think he can average a double-double.
Yeah, and to kind of keep going on this overall too, I only saw the second half.
Yep.
It felt like there was some really, really strong stretches from Donovan Dent too. Felt like really assertive play, and that's kind of what you were expecting. I mean, you wrote the story in terms of talking to Mountain West coaches this week. You had a podcast of them. Both were excellent and all that. What was your read on his performance?
So Donovan is a guy that comes in. He showed early last year that he could lead the team, right? And he led a team in high school, one of the best nationally ranked public school teams in high school, Corona Centennial in California. He was Mr. California. He has led teams before. He got here deferred as a freshman, naturally, because he wasn't ready as a freshman to lead a college team. But quite frankly, he was ready as a sophomore last year to lead a college basketball team. And yet, while early on, he got that opportunity because both Jamal Mashburn Jr. last year and Jalen House were both hurt. So Donovan got to run the show a little bit. When they were both healthy come league play, that really took a backseat, and Donovan wasn't able to do that anymore. And he got frustrated. He never really publicly said it, but it is absolutely well known that he was getting a little frustrated with things. Sometimes couldn't take over as much as he wanted, couldn't run the show quite as much as he wanted. In the Mountain West tournament, he got really sick. So it's good that Jalen House was still there and able to take over. Jamal Mashburn Jr. had some big tournament games as well. So it was a good 3-headed monster last year, but Donovan Dent is a lead guard. He wants to run the show. He showed that last night, especially in stretches, as you said, in the second half, and I think he can do that all year. He was at one point with, I think, 13 points. I think he'd finished scoring, so I think he was already at 13. I guess he finished at 15. At one point, he was at 13 points, 11 assists, and no turnovers. Last year, he was one of only 3 players in the country to have multiple 10-point, 10-turnover games with no turnover, or 10-point, 10-assist games with no turnovers. He almost had one in the opener last night. He's going to have a lot of these games with double-digit assists and low turnovers, because when he gets in the groove and he's in control, he's a pretty good point guard. I mean, we're talking one of the best in the country, not just out west.
There's some stuff that I like that I saw from True Washington last night. Yeah. I'm kind of parroting the same question over and over again, but at the same time, I mean, what was your read on what he did? So
True's a guy that I think is taken over for Jalen in the energy standpoint, and he's a guy that last year he played in short spurts. So I thought exactly what he did last year was a good role for him. He wasn't playing, many games more than 20 minutes. He wanted to, but he could go all out last year. And just go crazy defensively and pick up fouls because he wasn't expected to play more than 18 to 22 minutes or so. And this year, as his minutes go up and he's going to be asked to play 30 minutes a game, I didn't think he could do that. If you saw him defend last night, he was still doing it and doing it without fouling for the most part. I do think he's a guy that can knock down some threes. I wouldn't call him an outside shooter, but he can knock down some outside threes. He started the UTEP game last week, the first possession of the game with a three-pointer, corner three, set up by Donovan Dent. He started last night's game, first possession, corner three, set up by Donovan Dent. Then they went cold on the three, but True is a guy that can knock down the three, and he is a guy that I think can be one of the best defenders out west. Richard Pitino said he thinks he can compete for Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year. I do see that as something he could attain, maybe not this sophomore year, but why not? I guess the years in college basketball don't really matter as much anymore. So I think True Washington can be really good. He probably needs to offensively. I don't know. It's hard to compare him when Donovan Dent's on the floor, because I want to say True maybe should get more people involved a little bit on offense, but it's really hard to hold Donovan Dent is the standard there and compare people to that. I think True's probably going to have some growing to do on the offensive side with getting other people involved, but I don't think there's much there. I think True's going to have a pretty big year. As far as all conference goes, I would say Donovan and Nelly are the two that I would vote for and did vote for preseason wise for all conference caliber players for the Lobos. True's right there on the fringe though. True could be a potential all conference player as well.
What was Pitino? I mean, I read your story, but obviously, I mean, I don't know how many people are watching this and have read the story. What did Pitino say after the game?
So, I mean, he was frustrated with the defense. I texted him earlier and kind of was poking fun at myself because I had asked him at one point, as I said earlier, they did actually a lot of good things on defense. They had 10 steals. They had 10 blocks. They didn't foul much. They did a lot of things that were actually pretty good. And then all of a sudden, in the post game, I'm trying to talk to Pitino a little bit about, okay, well, I know you gave up 3 or 15 3-pointers, but was there anything, did you like your defense? Was there anything? Sometimes when you give up a whole bunch of threes, it's because teams just go off and hit tough shots, but you defended them well. I was trying to ask him if he was happy with the other parts and if he was happy with their defense and maybe Nichols was just hitting it. But no, what I asked him was, you gave up 15 threes. Were you happy with that? And his answer, of course, was no, I'm not happy with that. And I think because like I said earlier, and I believe it to be true, thought that was a little bit of an anomaly based on what they did last year defensively with the shorter team. I think he kind of thought that it wasn't worth talking too much about. He was concerned about it. And he did say offensively, their 7 of 36, 19% 3-point shooting was not acceptable, but he wasn't as worried about that because they scored 91. 91 is enough to win any college basketball game if you play any defense. The Lobos struggled there, so he wasn't worried about their 3-point shooting, but their 3-point defense he was worried about. But he also, I would say, showed a little bit of patience in that post-game press conference for a few reasons. He was getting questions like, did you like your defense giving up 15 3-pointers? And I think that media room was a little, I don't know, and it was a weird vibe, right? They win their opener. They do a lot of good things. They have 3 players with triple doubles. Nelly had just talked to us. Nelly Jr. Joseph, who's just always in a good mood. And then Pitino comes in and you want to ask him about what they kind of messed up on, what they can work on, what they're going to try and grow from here on before the UCLA game. And I think a lot of people just kind of had a weird vibe about was this a good night or not? They didn't cover. I know the point spread is just an indicator of what computers expect from you, and early in the year they can be way off. So I do think that there was a sense of, was this a good game or not in that media room? And I do think Pitino probably showed a little bit of patience with a lot of awkwardly asked questions, and including by myself.
In terms of just me looking at the split box right now and kind of all the numbers, because I haven't looked at the box until right now and all that. The one thing that kind of stands out to me a little bit, 27 fast break points. What did you think of the run game is a football term, but it is getting out and running in that sense.
Yeah, they're going to run. They were one of the fastest teams in the country last year. Let me pull up the stat I had written. I threw something in my emptying the notebook about how fast they played. This caught me off guard a little bit because I didn't realize it at the time. Pulling it up here. The Lobos, this is what I wrote in my emptying the notebook in today's journal, I guess online only. It wasn't in print. It's the morning after every game, I have an emptying the notebook with a bunch of little random stats and notes and little chunks of kind of follow-up. And this one says the Lobos have played fast under Richard Pitino, like really fast. UNM's adjusted tempo national ranking according to KenPom. In his first year, 2021-22, they ranked 22nd in the country out of 362 Division I teams. Last year, they ranked 17th in the country. Or no, his second year, they ranked 17th in the country. Last year, they ranked 9th in the country out of 362 Division I teams. And last night's game was technically the fastest they've ever played under Pitino. Fast and high tempo in college basketball is defined. Tempo is defined in college basketball by number of possessions. You shoot quicker, you give the other team the ball quicker, they shoot quick. If you guys are just shooting quick, you have more possessions. So tempo is dictated by the number or defined by the number of possessions you have in the game. They had 84 possessions last night. Most games are in the 60s. Last night was actually the fastest game in the Pitino era, and I didn't quite get that sense while covering it. But yes, to answer your question about fast break points and stuff like that, yeah, they're going to run. They're going to run every chance they get. I think what they really like as well is that Mustafa Amzil at the 4 can handle the ball at least enough where he doesn't have to dribble an outlet. He can dribble and go if he wants. They can dribble and go from the 1 through 4, and really in a pinch, and Nelly did it a couple times last night, even the 5 position doesn't even have to outlet. Sometimes the outlet can cause just a second or two hesitation on a fast break and give the defense just a split second to get back. If you're outletting down court, obviously that's not necessarily the case, but usually you get a rebound and you look for your point guard just right around you to either side. If you get that rebound and you could just start going yourself, that helps a fast break an awful lot. And I do think that 1 through 4, they're pretty comfortable with letting that rebounder just go and run and start the fast break themselves. And Nelly can certainly he'll get a lot of rebounds. He could do it in a pinch, but I think he for the most part will outlet to Donovan or whoever. I'm gonna pull in. There are a few comments here from Drea. Is that Drea US? What do you think that is? How do you think that name is? DREAUS. And I know you're here a lot, Drea. I don't know if that's like Andrea.
I think it's short for I think
so. And then US at the end. So it's Andreas. Okay. Andrea. Right. I'm going to go with Andrea. But anyway, Drea US said Braden had one. We were talking about 3-pointers earlier. Braden got one, and Dodson did good. I agree. I don't think that. Unfortunately for Braden, I don't think his 9 minutes were overall very good. He was 1 for 4 from 3-point range, and the one he hit was a big one. It did cap a good run for the Lobos, kind of pushed Nichols back out of contention. They were late in the fourth quarter. He did come up with 1 steal. I do think that Braden's minutes overall, when he first got in, he got blown by on defense. I think that's what will get him more minutes in general, is if he can defend at least adequately. After that first possession, I think he defended a lot better, but that's what they're looking for. They need him to hit shots, right? They're going to put him in to try and hit shots, but he can't be a deficiency defensively. And on 1 possession anyway, he was last night. That's really small sample size, and he just got off the bench. I do think Braden can get some good minutes off the bench this year, especially when they need shooting, because I don't know, if CJ Nolan's going 1 for 9, they're going to need somebody at that 3 spot to do it. And if Filip Borovichinin is going to be tentative offensively like he was in the UTEP game last week, last night, not as much. He did put up 4 3-point attempts. He hit 1 of them, same as Braden. But I do think Filip was much better, much more aggressive and assertive last night. As far as Cade Dotson goes, I want to say like his minutes last night were great. As a true freshman in his first college game, I liked that Pitino tried him and Dent together. I didn't expect that maybe all season, let alone in the first game of the season. If you can get Dent off the ball a little bit for a few minutes a half, I think that's going to be really good for a guy that's probably going to be playing a lot of 38-minute games for the Lobos. So Cade Dodson was the only guy off the bench that had a positive plus-minus last night. I thought he played really well, and I think that was a good sign of things to come. I think off the bench, you're looking at Cade Dodson, the backup point guard. You're looking at C.J. Nolan, the backup wing, the backup 2-3, really, to True Washington and to Philip Borovicinen. And I think that you're, as far as big men go, Atiki Ali Atiki got 4 minutes last night. He's the BYU transfer. I don't think he is going to play more than probably 8 minutes a game. He's going to get in some foul trouble, but he's going to be really active. I do think they might need to find somebody else that can play the 5 a little bit. Maybe they move Mustafa over to the 5 when Nelly has to sit. But they're probably going to have to get some more minutes from a bench 5, and maybe that's Jovan Milicevic, the freshman, who is also 6'10", but he's really more of a 4. So anyway, as far as guys off the bench, I do think Cade Dodson and Braden Applehouse both did okay overall, as the comment says. Some other ones here: Love True, Nelly, and Dent. All are so good. All are so good. The others just need a little settling in time. I think that's right. This is early in the season. It is early in the season for all the teams. But the one thing I will say about True, Nelly, Dent, and Mustafa Mzil, those guys are returning, and the Lobos, despite losing 3 really key guys in Jalen House, Jamal Mashburn Jr., and JT Toppin from last year's team, actually return more minutes and more points than a lot of the contenders in the Mountain West this year. So that could be good. I'm curious, Sean, when you're watching this game, when you're watching a game, and I'm so close to it because I see him, in practices and in every game. What are you wanting them to do more of? When there are fans that I sit around that get so frustrated when they don't do one thing over and over and over again, and you can't do the same thing over and over again all game. But is there anything that you're wondering why they don't do more of?
I think I was wondering consistently in the second half, wondering as I watched why they were giving up so many threes. I think that was probably the main thing there. No, to be honest with you, I mean, it's kind of like, the start of my season when we're talking about football and all that, where I'm really close to football and you're really close to basketball, and I'm kind of learning about this basketball team because I'm not as close to it as you are. I think when you do have the tendency to, and this is similar to some teams I've covered, I think when you do have the tendency and you do have that want and that desire to get out and run more, when you don't totally get it done all the time, even though, they ran plenty last night, I think that can be frustrating to fans and all that too. Why isn't this working? But I also think, honestly, and this is on a different note too, and I saw a lot of fans kind of bring this point up too. Nichols played really hard from what I saw. They really brought it. And it wasn't perfect, but I don't know. It's one game, and basketball is way different from football. And I've kind of talked about how I like this element of basketball more, where one game isn't is far from a defining point.
It's kind of what they're doing in college football now too, right? With the CFP, you can
not even the postseason element too. Just overall, I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I think if they lost to Nichols, nobody would be happy, right? But it wouldn't be dead in the water.
It's worth noting that as far as what Nichols might be, I think KenPom wise, they're 160 to early. So again, it doesn't necessarily matter. But
they were in the Southland Conference Championship last
175. Year. Yeah, and they did get 3 first place votes in a league that has McNeese, which a lot of people like. They're receiving votes in the top 25. Nichols was the only other team in that league to get first place votes. They're ranked 175 in KenPom right now. You want to compare that to teams that UNM played last year when they got to the NCAA tournament and had a really good year. Last second buzzer beater, coast to coast, Donovan Dent layup was needed to beat New Mexico State team that was way worse down in Las Cruces. That was much worse than this Nichols team last year, and a UT Arlington team that was equal to maybe a little bit worse than that Nichols team last night. So, it's not the end of the world. It's just that it's the first exposure, first game of the season. People don't like that to be the first, because when that's all you have to base it on, you kind of expect maybe that's going to last a lot longer. I wanted to point out too on the 3-point defense. A year ago, New Mexico opponents averaged 27.8% of their points came off 3-pointers. The national average was just a little bit over 30%. Last night, Nichols got 53% of their points off 3-pointers. You're not going to see teams hit that many threes against. Well, I guess we don't know for sure, right? I don't expect you to see too many teams hit that many threes against the Lobos. And if you're going to try and go inside on the Lobos, you're talking about challenging a 6'10 Nelly Jr. Joseph, who's in the best shape of his life and a very good shot blocker, a 6'9 Mustafa Amzil, a 6'9 3 in Philip. And I think, a Tiki off the bench, a 6'10 guy off the bench, and Jovan Milosevic. This is a big Lobo team that I don't think a lot of people are going to go inside on very regularly. Boise State, of course, will, but that's down the road. So I don't think a lot of teams are going to go inside, or not with success, on the Lobos. So maybe they will shoot more threes this year, but frankly, the Lobos probably would be okay with that because they have more length on the perimeter now.
Yeah, and as a side note too, I mean, I know I think he's going to have a really good year too. Like, and after what I saw last night and what you've kind of reported and all that too, best shape of his life always makes me crack up, because how many times have we seen athletes and all that? Man, Miguel Cabrera is in the best shape of his life.
Best shape of his life.
He's going to have a huge year, and then he hits and he does not have a good year.
I will say, I agree with you. I will say this at least comes from talking to the strength coach at UNM basketball, Matt Flores, who was just really high on what Nelly has done all offseason in the weight room. Other comment that doesn't really have a name, just has a little symbol there as their name. Been up on my screen for a minute and didn't say it earlier, but just need Nelly to be aggressive and just be a force. I mean, I agree. He also needs to stay out of foul trouble. That's another remarkable part of what Nelly did last night, is he can be prone for foul trouble. He only committed 2 last night. He drew 9 fouls. And he shot 53% from the free throw line last year, which is awful. But last night he was 10 to 12. So if Nelly isn't going to commit fouls, if he's going to get to the free throw line 12 times and hit 10 of them, like, he is going to be not only a first team all conference guy, he's going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of national attention if you're a big man doing that kind of stuff. One other comment here: if we want a chance to win against UCLA, Dent definitely has to be the best player on the court. I'll tell you what, there's a chance of it. UCLA has prospects. UCLA has 2 of his high school teammates when Dent was voted Mr. California. And I think there's a chance that Dent at his best will be the best player on the court Friday. That is how good I believe Dent to be. But the issue is UCLA has 4 or 5 guys that are 4-star, 5-star kind of recruits, right? Dent was a 3-star recruit that has proven he was worthy of a 4 or 5 when he came out of California a couple years ago. UCLA has a lot more of those. So UNM is going to have to play a really, really good game. One thing beneficial to the Lobos from that UTEP game was they play really physical last week, real physical style, and that's what UCLA does. So the Lobos won't be caught off guard by just over-the-top physicality like Mick Cronin is going to have. Remember, Mick Cronin and Richard Pitino are friends too. I don't expect any secrets. I don't think any surprises will happen to the Lobos. And I do think Donovan Dent has a chance to be the best player on the floor. The problem is UCLA knows that too, and they're going to do a lot to try and keep him from doing that. A couple more basketball things before we kind of shift gears a little bit and talk some football. Jet Metcalf says on YouTube, Amzil is looking better defensively in the paint for sure. Just want to give that plug for him. Not only better defensively, I mean, this goes in hand with defense, but his 13 rebounds last night, a career high, were not only impressive. Like, I think it was in some ways relieving for a lot of people to see him be able to do that. I was worried a year ago that he was going to be a Vance Jackson-like. And for Lobo fans who remember a few years back, Vance Jackson was a 6'9" kind of wing that would never go inside the three-point arc. He could hit threes. He could get going. He could get hot, especially in the Mountain West tournament. He did that a couple times, and they called him Vegas Vance and all that. But it was for his offense. It wasn't because he would mix it up down low and get rebounds. He would stay outside. He, of course, transferred to Arkansas, played for Eric Musselman, and didn't play much there because he didn't really mix it up inside as much. I thought Mustafa Amzil, coming from Dayton, was going to be a Vance Jackson type, 6'9" outside shooter that didn't want to mix it up, and he proved me wrong. That's it. Not only did he prove me wrong a little bit last year, he really showed me last night with 13 rebounds and some tough rebounds too, that he's not only willing, but like that's what he is now. He is a power forward on defense. He can handle himself on defense as a 4 and still be a threat on the outside on offense, even if 1 for 9 doesn't seem that way last night. So what else do we got here on some basketball stuff before we shift? Justin Apodaca, who is I believe Albuquerque native. I know he's a Lobo fan, but I think I know he's from Albuquerque, but I don't know if he was born and raised there his whole life, but he was a Lobo fan. Justin Apodaca watching, will UNM folks be monitoring JT Toppin and Texas Tech tonight?
Justin also does very good work covering Texas Tech too.
He's doing really good work for Texas Tech, football and basketball both. And
huge win over Iowa State. Golly. Huge.
I do think people are going to monitor. I don't think a ton of Lobo fans are going to, do a box score check live, but I'll certainly update them, and I think a lot of them will welcome that. They want to know how he's going to do. I'm curious how he's going to do, because while he showed the potential, there's a reason he was on the NBA draft combine and kind of on the fence. Am I going to turn pro now or not? And I think financially he had a very easy decision to make, because he can make some money to go to Texas Tech as he did and get better, maybe improve his draft stock. But he is an NBA prospect, but I don't know how polished he is just yet. He has some growing to do still. I think he can stretch his game out to be more of an outside shooter. I don't know how consistent he is going to be with that outside shot just yet. I don't know for sure how much Grant McClaskin is at Texas Tech is going to have him play on the outside. So I'm curious to see how much outside game they have with JT and how much that takes away with how good he was finishing at the rim last year. So I want to see JT, how his growth on both sides of the ball. He was a great off the ball shot blocker. I want to see him one-on-one be more of an on the ball defender a little bit. These are all kind of nitpicky things, mind you. He was a tremendous freshman. He's going to be a tremendous sophomore. I want to see the growth, though. I do think he benefited quite a bit from Nelly Jr. Joseph playing the 5 and guarding the 5. I don't think JT had to guard the opposing team's center very often, and I think that helped JT a lot. So this year he might have to do that some. We'll see. But I think Lobo fans are going to follow JT. I know I will, and I'm pulling for him, man. I really liked covering JT. I wish the best for him, but I do think there's some growth that he needs to do before he takes that next step. Yep, and that's right. Born and raised. I couldn't remember if you were born here or not, but Justin is born and raised in Albuquerque, and now doing great work, as Sean said, in covering Texas Tech out in Lubbock.
Really good work.
You want to shift over to some football now?
Yeah, let's talk ball, man.
Football. We got some Lobo football this week. Mathematically, still in it for a bowl.
Not eliminated. 3-6.
3-6. And where are we at with the San Diego State game? I guess let me start with the one thing that came up late last week. I don't think it's an issue, but let me make sure. Anything going on with the field? Is anything going to change field conditions wise? Snapdragon Stadium, for those that don't know, had some field concerns that moved a professional women's soccer game out of the stadium. So anything going on with the stadium?
Yeah, if it looks like to everybody watching at home that I've been on the phone a little bit too much, I have been texting some people about that throughout the course of the show right now. I don't have a firm and fast update right now. That's something that I'll be able to put out later today and all that too. From my impression, it does not look like the game is going to get moved because the field is unsafe and all that. San Diego State's ground crew, from what the last update that I had, they believe that the field is safe and all that. I will say one interesting thing. I'm going to talk to a couple guys about it today too. Kirk Kenny, the San Diego Union Tribune, great beat writer out there. Kirk put out a story talking about the kind of the field and that situation at this point. And let me pull it up on my phone, too, because I took a screenshot of it in particular. I did think it was interesting how some of the San Diego State players, not really Sean Lewis, the head coach, were kind of talking about it. I'll quote this. San Diego State senior cornerback Bryce Phillips said getting traction was an issue on defense against Washington State. So it was an issue for San Diego State players and all that, too, and Washington State. But Phillips went on to say, it has to be an advantage for us at this point. We know what we're going into. We know what we have to do. Planting off one foot, you know it's going to be slippery, so you've got to plant off the correct foot. As an offense, New Mexico is not going to be ready for it. That was something that I wasn't really thinking of yesterday when we spoke with head coach Bronco Mendenhall and all that. Now I'm gonna ask a few more questions. And I do think, and look, this is not me criticizing Phillips, and this is not really me criticizing Sean Lewis. I thought Lewis's comments for the most part were pretty good. Just kind of look, we're going to go out in there and play. It's very silly. Okay, so if it's not safe and all that, even then, it's very silly to be like, hey, our messed up field is a competitive advantage. I don't know if that's exactly.
Yeah, I don't think you want to say that. It's not like the Isotopes for years until 2 years ago had a hill in the outfield, right?
Yes.
They called it the Tope Slope, the Glen Allen Hill, things I used to call it through the years, their manager and stuff like that. And it was a uniqueness that gave them maybe a home field advantage that their center fielder liked, and everyone enjoyed seeing the opposing team play on it for the first time. When you're talking unsafe field conditions in general, like the whole field, then maybe you don't brag about it. Maybe don't boast about how, that's to our advantage.
And I'm not a turf scientist or anything of that nature and all that too. Like we've talked about a little bit on the show too, where it is kind of a situation where they were trying to, I believe, fill in some certain parts of the turf that was a little rough with sand and all that. So you're just kind of mucking about in this sand turf mixture. And that's, there's nothing that has come out to me, and there's no updates that I've had from anybody that are saying that it's unsafe at this point and all that. Obviously, the NWSL, they made their decision and all that too. The team, I should say. I believe it was a team, not the league. I believe it was a team, not the league. So that's bad attribution on my part. But even then, it's just kind of, it's an odd. I mean, I guess credit to players for making the best of a not ideal situation, but it's a weird approach, right? And I don't know. That's something certainly to think about in getting into this game, and something that I'll be writing about this week, probably in more stories than one. But yeah, that's kind of my read there.
I'm curious. Yesterday, again, we kind of shifted gears a little bit yesterday from our usual 2 p.m.
We've been shifting a lot of gears.
Of shifting of gears.
So many.
So no 2 p.m. Monday afternoon yesterday, partly because the weekly noon Monday press conference from Bronco Mendenhall was pushed back a little bit. And then between that and the game, we just decided to put it to today, and we could talk about Lobo basketball and football together. Tell us what the takeaway from Broncos press conference yesterday was. I imagine there's still got to be some disappointment from how they lost and the loss on Saturday to Wyoming. But we've talked about before, Bronco has been even keel all season long. I'm guessing he was again yesterday, but you tell us, you were there. What was the takeaway from Broncos press conference yesterday?
So yeah, usually we do the press conference at noon on Mondays, and we don't go to practice that day. We go to a little bit of practice, the 30 minutes we get, that is on a Tuesday, and then we talk to players that day, and that's kind of that. So we had it all roped in yesterday. We saw practice and then had to leave and then come back and talk to Bronco and then some other players and all that as well. We get whoever's starting at quarterback that week, and this year it's all been Devin Dampier, so that's the day you talked to him too. That was all roped into Monday. And I was really curious. Response for this team has never been something that I think has been necessary to question, honestly. Even when they've lost, I think they've come out and they've done good things in games and all that, and there's been some issues for sure, right? They're 3-6 team. But at the same time, I don't think response has been a major question. That's not anything that Bronco Mendenhall has ever come out and said, like, yeah, we're just not responding. Yeah. I was curious to kind of see this at practice and all that. And it did seem like a pretty energetic, spirited practice. Not quite like a rallying cry or anything like that. But at the same time, I think there is a legitimate recognition that this team, their backs are against the wall right now. I mean, they have to win out. The odds are not great. And it's not going to be easy. San Diego State on this Friday, Washington State at home. There's now a game time for that, by the way. It's 7:30 p.m. kick in Albuquerque. And then
7:30 p.m. kick. Yuck. Anyway,
we'll make the most of it. And then a trip to the islands to play Hawaii. And Hawaii huge win over Fresno State. Pretty impressive to get that done there too. But at the same time, Bronco Mendenhall kind of talked a little bit about that too. And I wrote about this in my post-game kind of follow-up, the notebook I did, where the Wyoming loss really did shift. And I think Bronco kind of acknowledged that in his post-game, press conference and all that. It did kind of shift the focus, I think, for a lot of fans and a lot of people and some media from the week to week. Okay, like this is the game and they got to win this and yada, yada, yada to stay in the conversation. Now it's right back to kind of the macro of developing the program and kind of, taking these foundational steps, even if it's, whether it's winning games or fixing the defense or just figuring out how to field onside kicks and all that too, all that stuff. And he did talk a little bit about that in a way that I thought was interesting too, to where, he said like the similar tone of the consistency of, look, I mean, yeah, these are all foundational experiences, but he did admit, he said, I promised the players that I need to be, that I need to be consistent on a week in, week out, day-to-day basis and all that too. But he's like, but they've seen every emotion from me. And like, clearly he's like, I was hurt by the loss too. Like that bummed me out. And I thought that was interesting from him too. In terms of other developments of importance from practice yesterday and kind of media press conference, Luke Weissong was a full go at practice. He warmed up before the Wyoming game. And then just got called out after that. Bronco Mendenhall, after the post-game press conference, said he just wasn't quite there with the kind of lower body injury that he's been dealing with, that he suffered in the Colorado State game on the first drive. But he was full go at practice yesterday. Looked good to me. I mean, last week there was a very noticeable limp. I didn't really see much of a one yesterday, the bit of practice that we saw. And Nakari Rogers was also back. I did not talk to Nakari. I talked to Luke a little bit yesterday. I'm kind of curious how that's gonna, not exactly how that's all gonna work, but I am curious what that run game will end up looking like this week too. Because it was sensational with Sanders and Devin last week. Obviously, two career performances,
historic.
Yeah, I mean, like it feels like I keep like underselling it to a certain degree.
200-yard games in the loss.
Yeah, and the presser with Bronco got cut short, but that was the question I wanted to ask. Well, have you ever had 200-yard rushers in a single game before? So those are the kind of notables there. In terms of Derek Moore, also backup safety, he was back out of turquoise, which the turquoise jersey means injured, non-contact, limited, and usually we don't get any details about that throughout the course of the week or anything like that. Kyler Drake, he was down for a little bit in the Wyoming game. I don't remember exactly what play it was, or I believe it was second half. He was in turquoise during practice as well, too. So curious there. I thought the defensive line did some good things in the second half against Wyoming, but at the same time, Harrison Whaley, he got his due, whether it was the first half or the second half, and I know UNM only let up a touchdown in the second half too, but they certainly found ways to get things going in the run game as well too, and that's something they're going to have to deal with this week too. San Diego State's got a really talented back in Marquez Cooper, really durable. He's been pretty consistent on a week-to-week basis from what I've seen, and this is not an easy offense to play against either. This is a Sean Lewis function, and they do a lot to make it tough for defenses.
Well, they're starting to get it going a little bit under Sean Lewis. They've shown at times they could be pretty good, right? San Diego State. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised by let me ask you this. Are you surprised by the line? It's 3 points. It's San Diego State -3.
No.
3 is basically calling this an even game.
Yeah, and they're just set. Yeah, exactly.
You think these are
Snapdragon?
Yeah. You think there's two equal teams?
Did they factor in the field at all? Do you think
right? It's a home field advantage, right?
Literally a home field advantage. We know how to play on this field.
Do you think these are two even teams right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that San Diego State's defense overall has been better than UNM's. It's been more consistent than UNM's. I like their DBs a good deal. They have a guy, Trey White, 47. He is no longer the national leader in sacks. He has 11.5. He's behind a guy from Virginia Tech, and I'm blanking. Been really, really super productive off the edge there. We're going to write about him a little bit this week. I asked Bronco about him yesterday. And again, we say like every single one of these shows, like Bronco does not really talk a whole lot about the other team or other players in the way that other coaches do. But what he kind of said was like, look, at this level, there's so many similar players and so many similar skill sets. And what sets you apart is production. And the production is definitely setting them apart. Obviously, when you're second nationally in sacks, it's pretty ridiculous. So he's been good too. In terms of going back to the point of, are these two even teams? I do think UNM's offense has certainly been more explosive.
Sure.
And I think it's more multifaceted. And I think there's things that Devin Dampier obviously does that makes life kind of hell for opposing defenses and all that too. You just can't get get a full hold on him and the way that you can with other dual threat quarterbacks. And that being said, though, it hasn't been perfect for this offense and all that too. And like, this is an offense that they're branding it right now as Aztec fast, all caps fast, similar to what they did at Kent State. And then a little bit, not super similar. So I'll say similar to what they did at Colorado last year when Sean Lewis was the OC before he got demoted mid-season.
Kind of demoted, moved, fired. Who knows?
Deion said I can't even talk. Deion said we got to get Pat Shermer in here, and Pat. I mean, it's been good this year anyway.
Yeah, they're
so
doing
it worked,
fine.
But
I thought they were doing fine anyway, though. Like I didn't think that was the problem.
I thought they were doing all right. Yeah. It's just tough. There's so many options on every single play for the quarterback to work with, and the structure. I mean, like Bronco was talking a little bit about it yesterday too. It's like when you condense in the run game, then the passing windows open right back up, and it's just kind of a pain to deal with. They have ran it more than they've thrown it this year, and I think that's a product of having Cooper and being able to lean on him a little bit more, and a product of Danny O'Neal, true freshman quarterback. I think he's from Indianapolis, won the job. I don't know if he's in the upper tier of Mountain West quarterbacks right now, in a very interesting very interesting amalgamation of Mountain West quarterbacks right now.
I'll ask you. We're about to follow up on that.
But I do think he's been good. I think he's 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. There's a good ball, that's for sure too. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
All right, you set it up. Let me ask the weekly. I'm all in on
golly.
Did you hear what I just called him?
Oh my God,
Donovan Dent. I am all in on Devin Dampier.
Pause. I was thinking about this last night. It is just criminal that there has not been, and I mentioned on other shows, a Donovan Dent and Devin Dampier like photo shoot through UNM
or like social media, whatever.
Why is there not like a poster at this point? Like I look at like Anthony Edwards, Justin Jefferson, they're kind of remaking the Randy Moss and oh my gosh, Kevin Garnett kind of photo shoots too. Why has it not happened yet? Anyways.
It's a lost opportunity so far.
Missed opportunity.
UNM. All right. I'm pulling up the stats here while I ask this because I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Devin Dampier is the best quarterback in the Mountain West. Now, he has some turnovers. He is not leading his team to a winning record yet at this point.
Leading his team to success, for sure.
Quarterbacks get judged on a lot, and wins are usually one of them.
What is your take on this? We've done it for years now. Are wins a quarterback stat?
I don't want to say no. Because I don't think,
and I think it's different from. I do think it's different from pro to college. I do think it's legitimately different.
I don't want to say no entirely, but they get way too much credit for him. I think they're way. Sometimes quarterbacks give you a chance to win even when your team is bad. Sometimes quarterback. I will say this: a great team with
quarterbacks give you no chance to win.
Well, a great team with no quarterback at all, like a really bad minus quarterback. Can ruin an entire team. A really great quarterback probably can't elevate a really bad every other position. I don't think Tom Brady. And I'm a Joe Montana guy. I don't think Joe Montana or Tom Brady would elevate a team of nobodies, complete nobodies. They have to have some talent around them to win. But I do think a bad quarterback can really ruin it for a really good team. So what does that mean? Then does wins count for quarterbacks? I think it has to count a little bit, but I think we overdo it. I say all that to ask you, what's your weekly answer to my take that I think Devin Dampier is the best quarterback in the Mountain West? I know you're really all in on playing on the blue on Maddox Madsen, and are you not thinking he's the best now?
This is weird, right? Like this is a weird year for it. Usually there is kind of like I thought Cordero was the best quarterback in the league last year. Okay. I loved Cordero. I thought he was a phenomenal player, and what they did at San Jose State was pretty impressive. Mikey Keene was right in that conversation too, where there's kind of these two clear-cut guys and all that. And like when Taylor Green, the Boise State 2 quarterback situation last year, golly, I mean, just never again, please.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever see that ever happen ever again. But I thought when Taylor Green was really kind of ripping and rolling and running there, I thought he was certainly in that class too. This year is weird. Mikey Keene has not played up to expectations, and I do think part of that is just some of the I don't want to say the structure, but kind of the play calling and not having Tedford around. It just hasn't been a great offense in a lot of respects. It just hasn't been super effective. I don't know. My answers in terms of Devin is the same as it was on Saturday, right? I think he's the most dynamic quarterback in the league. I don't think he's the best quarterback in the league, and I do think it is in large part because of turnovers. This is 7 turnovers in 3 games, and some have counted for more than others, right? I mean, that second pick against Utah State, that pick was just kind of a wash, basically, right? Like time had already expired. I mean, they got Brock Lane down. I mean, it was just whatever. Okay, so it's going to show up on the stat sheet, and maybe it wasn't the best of decisions, but it was a true kind of desperate, heave down the field and all that. But then you have some that really matter. I mean, the 29-yard pick 6 to Rook Brown for the Wyoming game that brought him right back into it, and it's clear that Devin, we talked to him yesterday, is frustrated with it at this point.
Yeah.
He's not coming out and saying I'm frustrated with it, but I mean, he said like turnovers are a huge thing, and I have to be better in that regard because it is hurting us. And it is just the fact, I mean, you're a Joe Montana guy. You can maybe say the mark of a truly great quarterback if you put aside kind of the talent and the pieces around you in some respects. It just comes down to executing in critical moments.
And decision making, moving chains, and all that.
Exactly.
But it comes at the critical moments.
And I also, we did talk about it on Saturday, and I kind of dodged around some of the questions too, in terms of the pick 6 and the play structure and all that too. I did ask Devin yesterday, like, what was that play? I mean, like, because I didn't think there was an option on that, but. I don't know. I don't know this offense in and out. It was a straight passing play.
Okay.
He said it was a miscommunication on an option route to wide receiver Ryan Davis. So
miscommunication. I will say this: earlier in the year,
is it the worst? Like, do I think should they have probably been running it at that point? Maybe because he threw the pick with 6 minutes left?
Yeah, probably around there.
Something. I think it. I don't remember exactly.
Well,
but.
What I was going to say is I remember earlier in the year thinking, okay, he's not forcing anything. He's not hurting himself. I mean, just last night I heard a radio interview, or on the radio driving home from the pit, actually, or to the pit. Heard a Baker Mayfield interview talking about like their philosophy is, end every drive with the kick. And obviously that doesn't mean every drive you end with a PAT after a touchdown. Sometimes it's just end it with a punt, and that's fine. What you don't want to do is the turnovers.
You want to get to punts.
Yes.
That's something Devin said yesterday too. We want to get to punts.
Yes.
Like,
you don't want to on 3rd and long. Yeah, you don't want on 3rd and long to force it and maybe turn it over.
Yeah.
And early in the year, I did not think that Devin was doing any of that. I'm starting to think now that maybe, especially in the Colorado State game after Luke Weisong got hurt, I felt he was pressing for the first time. Maybe not the first time. Maybe he's shown it at other times. But I thought he pressed more in that Colorado State game than I remember. I think he pressed a little bit in the Wyoming game, although it's hard to get too nitpicky at that Wyoming game when
he breaks an 85-yard touchdown that puts him up 10, and it's like, okay, they're going to win this game somehow. Well, not even somehow. It's not like they were ever truly out of it, but like at the same time, it's like, wow, like that's what having a player that caliber, that skill set can do for you. And then you have that pick 6, and that kind of changes the tone a little bit too. So,
Sean, I got a question for you here. I'm looking at Mountain West stats. Number 1 in the league in, let's go with total offense first.
He is, yep.
He is number 1 in the league. There are 2 players in the Mountain West averaging over 300 yards of total offense per game. Number 1 is UNM's Devin Dampier, 332 yards per game. The other one averaging more than 300 yards is? Do you know?
Nobody else is, I think, right?
There's one now.
Is there somebody?
There's one at 308.
308. It wouldn't be UNLV. It wouldn't be Hodge. Would it be
it surprised me. But...
Not Shager. Who is it?
Shager's third, and he's
Okay.
at 267, so he's a good 33 yards away from being 300. Utah State's Spencer
Oh,
Petras.
man.
Petras?
Iowa legend.
308.
Big Ten born and bred. Actually, he was born in like San Francisco, but.
And he has a whopping 28 rushing yards on the year. So his is all passing. He's only played 6 games. Devin has 745 rushing yards, 2,243 passing yards. So this is what surprised me, though. So I knew Devin was going to be up there in total offense. Who, Sean, is leading the Mountain West, or where does Devin rank in the Mountain West in passing yards per game?
Well, he's got to be top 3.
He is top 3.
He's got to be top 3, right?
Yep.
I'll go. Well, if Petras is like, if he's second in total offense, he's got to be first overall passing. Right?
He is. He's at 304 yards per game.
I would go, man.
I will say this: 2, 3, and 4, all within 7 yards of each other.
The thing that's weird to me in terms of thinking about if Devin's 2 or 3 is just like he's had a couple productive passing games, but not like super gaudy numbers or whatever, right? Like I want to say he had like pretty tame. Really, I think like in wins, he hasn't had like crazy aggressive passing numbers and all that. In losses, like I mean, he passed for like 272 against Colorado State. I'm gonna go
2, 3, and 4 within 7 yards of each other.
2 Keen, Dampier 3.
Flip them. 2's Dampier,
Okay.
Keen's 3,
Okay.
and then Shager's 4.
Okay.
And then a little drop off to your guy Maddox Madsen, down at 223 per game.
My guy. Who's 5?
Maddox Madsen's
Oh,
5.
who's 6? Where's Emmett Brown? That's my
he's
question.
6, and he's down at 202 yards passing per game. So that's about 47 yards off of what Devin at number 2 is at 249. So anyway, I was a little surprised though to see Devin's passing numbers in a Mountain West conference that usually has 3 or 4 kind of, spread them out quarterbacks that are throwing for 300 yards every week. It seems like not just Hawaii, but maybe a Utah State. You see the usual suspects. Utah State's up there this year too. Anyway, just to see a UNM quarterback up there in the passing yards and the rushing yards is pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, and I think
he's number 5, by the way, in rushing in the conference overall.
Yeah, to kind of like wrap it, like I do think he truly I can't stress enough. I think he's the most dynamic quarterback in the league. He's doing a lot of things that other quarterbacks just can't, just literally cannot. Until the turnovers become less of an issue and they become less prolific in some ways. Wyoming was a nice step. I mean, it was a step in the right direction until that pick 6.
Yeah.
And that was just the one play you couldn't have. And I don't know, until it doesn't. And I know you can. I mean, maybe I'm being unfair because it was a miscommunication and all that too. And it was a pretty good defensive play, but at the same time, it did happen and it did swing the game. And in a way that I don't think you can totally understate. So I don't know who the best quarterback is in the Mountain West. I mean, I do. You're saying Devin.
I'm still going with Devin. I don't know. I mean, in fairness, I wouldn't even.
I don't think it's like Devin's down like 4. I think it's like 2. I think it's just one other person above.
Yeah, I don't know the other quarterbacks all that well. So, I just think Devin's what I want in a quarterback. And it'll be interesting to see what they in the offseason as everyone wants to know, what's he going to do? Who knows what he's going to do? I will say his size and what he's doing this year is pretty unique. Not all offenses do this. He's got to find the right place if he goes somewhere else. Otherwise, take what they pay you here and understand that what they're doing here is fitting you specifically.
And that's something that he talked about a little bit yesterday too. It's like he said, like you straight up said, like, I feel like I'm playing some of the best ball in my life right now. He said like career, but like, yeah. I mean, I want to say probably his life. Yeah. And he understands that the offense is catered to him in a lot of respects and all that, because I remember talking with offensive coordinator Jason Beck when he got hired, and it was a thing of, all right, well, we're going to figure out what we have in the offensive line first. We got to see that. And then, okay, well, what do we have at quarterback? And he said, like, during spring practice, he's like, I knew, like, we had something good, but, like, even then at spring practice, I was like, wow, like, this guy's pretty good. So, yeah, I don't know. And I'll stress this too. Like, I mean, like, I think San Diego State is rightfully the favorite, field aside or not.
Right.
But like, Broncos talked about it. I've written about it in certain degrees and all that. I've quoted people on it. When you have a quarterback, you have a chance, and they certainly have a quarterback right now. Now, there's still other things they got to figure out. And as this shifts in some ways to, I think they're still slightly on the micro in terms of like game-to-game results and all that too. But it does feel like there is a bit of waning interest on the outside in some ways too, as opposed to a couple weeks ago. And obviously, like, 2 straight losses where you're kind of backs against the wall for a bowl game compared to 3 straight wins. Yeah, it's going to be different, obviously, but I don't know. I do think there's a lot of things we're following in the macro and the development aspects too, and the development of Devin Dampier further, I think, is certainly worth watching for.
Going to put a bow on football here in a second, but I am looking at the stats, and I want to ask you one more stat question. This is Mountain West stats that I'm looking at. Receiving yards, number 5 in the league, even though he missed basically 2 games now.
Basically 2 games.
Luke Weissong is number 5 in the league with 663 yards.
And he 50 receptions is what? Because Nash is number 1. Nash has got to have like.
Weissong's 4 at 50 receptions now. He got passed by Ricky White and now has 51. Jalen Royals for Utah State has 55, and Nick Nash is at 80.
Royals' season is over. It took White a little bit. I won't say it took White a little bit to get your rhythm. It took
UNLV a little bit.
It took UNLV a little bit
to find White.
To get that going.
But here's my question.
And Nick Nash.
Luke Weissong, number 5, missed 2 games, obviously, but number 5 in receiving yards at 663 yards.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you know the other Lobo stats. Where does Ryan Davis rank in the Mountain West in receiving yards?
Well, he's got to have.
It surprised me. I'm telling you. I know he's been playing good.
I don't know his numbers off the top of my head. He's got a lot of balls. I mean, a lot of catches. Excuse me. That didn't. He's got a lot of catches. He's catching a lot of balls. Sorry, Ryan, but we'll cut that. I don't know, dude. He's got to be at what? He's between 450 and 525.
Well, I'll tell you this. He ranks in the top 10 in receptions now at 41.
Yeah.
He's at number 10. For Ryan Davis, who came into this year, you think Luke Weissong, you think Caleb Medford. I don't know. Maybe you think Ryan Davis third. Maybe I don't know who you thought was the third receiver, but you think Caleb Medford and Luke Weissong are going to be the top 2 receivers probably coming into the year?
Yeah, and there was certainly an element too of, well, guys are talking about Trujillo like this too, and that hasn't, and frankly for Medford too, it hasn't quite panned out statistically for either of them.
The fact that Ryan Davis, is top 10 in receiving yards and receptions.
What is his receiving yards?
Receiving yards, this is what surprised me, man. He is number 8 in the league right now with 587 receiving yards.
587, golly, I got to give him more credit.
He is less than 100 yards away from Luke Weissong.
Yeah.
Now he's played 1 more game, really 2 more because Luke went out on the first drive of another game. But
big games against Auburn and big games against
he's averaging
Colorado State, obviously.
Averaging 65 receiving yards a game in college football. That's a good number. Especially when you're sharing it with the number 5 guy in the league at 82 yards in Luke Weissong. So I was surprised to see that. So good for Ryan.
What gripping content this is. Like, okay, how many coaches does he have?
And now,
how many receiving yards does he have? We do this for 6 hours.
How many fingers am I holding up?
How many tackles does Gabe Lopez have?
We thank you for watching. We are testing out, just so you guys know, as we kind of put a bow on this show, testing out some new equipment here that I may got Sean over there on it. We got all these cords over here, lots of cords hooked up to my computer here. We got a little webcam that shows Sean, but also can show you the Journal newsroom right now. A lot of election day reporting going on out there. That's why there's not a whole lot of people out there right now, frankly. But we're just kind of testing out some equipment right now. And I think what we're going to be doing with this is I'm going to start taking this to maybe some home games at first just to make sure it works, and do a little live in-pit, in-arena live shows before basketball games and get a Lobo basketball assistant if possible. They've said they would be open to that, so maybe get an assistant before every game, give us a little scouting report, talk to maybe an opposing reporter if they are there, whoever else is around.
An opposing reporter.
An opposing reporter.
Yes.
The opposing team's beat reporters.
After we cover games, we fight the other beat reporters.
Have you guys seen Anchorman? The News Wars news team assemble.
Me and the Wyoming guys just beating the crap out of each other.
That's right.
On Saturday.
We also have a little fun here with see if this works here. I can zoom in.
What is that clicker? What are you doing?
That's a little remote. You may not know this. I don't know if you're watching. You don't see us on your screen.
Well, I just pulled it up.
I am zooming in and out on Sean.
Why are you doing that? Man, that doesn't look good.
Yeah. So anyway, these are all the fun I can do with that little webcam. So we're gonna start doing this on some games. We also have the ability to who knows, maybe not this season, but down the road, maybe we can get James Yotis at a state championship football game to talk a little bit. Maybe
that would
we can
be
get
electric.
some Lobo football games. We can figure out on site a little bit more and start doing it that way. So appreciate you guys for watching this and every week when we're just doing it on our laptops. And that's essentially all this one was, but we're just testing equipment today. So
one last thing, and I probably shouldn't be asking this, considering that we have not talked about it. We're not going to have a post-game. We're not going to have a post-game show for either basketball or football on Friday.
Right.
It's just going to be. It's just going to be too much.
Yeah. For you guys know. So you guys know, 8:00 Pacific, 9:00 Mountain for Lobo basketball on CBS Sports Network against UCLA. And for football, it's 7:30, 8:30?
8:30 Mountain Time, 7:30 Pacific at San Diego State.
On FS1.
On a Friday, Friday.
And this is all Friday night. So they will be going against each other on TV. Pick one. Good luck. Which one you guys want to watch. But we will both be busy. We will not be having a post game. I'll add to that in a couple weeks, we might not really have a Monday availability because I'm flying back from New York in a couple weeks on a Monday.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that too.
So anyway, we'll have to start getting a little flexible with these times.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, for the most part for now, just watch out on social media and I'll tell you when. I'll give you more advance notice than, hey, we're going to go on in an hour as best I can. But for the most part, we're still going to try a Monday afternoon show when we can. And we'll go from there. We'll get back to some football post games when we can as well. But it won't be this week. We will not have a post game football show after the San Diego State game.
Yeah, no. And we'll talk about it off the air and just figure something out if we're going to do something. I don't even know if we could do Saturday, but something on Sunday, or maybe we just kick it to Monday.
Sure.
So we'll see.
Appreciate you guys for watching. Appreciate you guys for hanging with us while we're testing out the equipment and all that good stuff. Go vote if you haven't. I have voted. As Matt Stevens, former sports editor in Fort Collins, said on social when I posted my obligatory I voted picture with my little stamp. He said, just proof that even New Mexicans can't do, or that New Mexicans can't do anything without their state flag incorporated in it. And even our little I vote stickers have something Zia related. So send us your feedback on this stuff too. Even if you didn't catch us live, if you catch this you can catch it on YouTube, on the Albuquerque Journal's YouTube page. You can catch it on social media with the link through our feeds. If you catch it live, obviously send us the comments. But even if it's after the fact and you're looking at it later, send us some feedback on this. We have one other thing that I'm curious about. Should we do it now?
So I put the tweet out, and
did you?
I put the tweet out. I said, "Huge, unfortunately, show on deck today." And I never want to do false advertising or get the watch, the viewers' hopes up for nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people have tuned in to actually see it. I wouldn't be opposed to not doing it right now. It just feels like we didn't really quite set it up, but we can do it.
Let's save it. I don't know what we're saving it for.
I don't know what we're saving it for either. Yeah,
but let's save it.
Okay, all right, we're saving it.
We're gonna save it. To the disappointment of the masses.
There's a bag of grapes here. That
Sean has never had a grape.
Neither of us brought in. Unknown figure in the office brought him in.
Outside
that
forces.
We were doing this show.
Outside forces are viewers, regulars of this show.
Opposing editors.
Yes. So we're going to save it. I do want to show you guys one more thing with all this new equipment, this little thing here. I will start. I will not abuse this, I promise. But that's right. Every time I say something good, and when I introduce a new guest or maybe introduce new reader comments. And of course, there's that's right. And then the extended version. Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later.